TorahCafe.com.
God created the world in 6 days, so we rest. The seventh day we rest.
Shabbat is very special for us. We stay home with the children.
We have people over and everybody's happy, and that's how it is in our house.
As far as the Jews are concerned, they shouldn't do anything at all on that day.
Yeah, it's a rest day.
I don't observe it, but I respect it.
It's the holiday which is celebrated on Saturdays.
It's Saturday, yeah? And that is part of living a full Jewish life.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Penny Ganevish, and welcome to Jewish Sparks. As you can see, our show today is about Shabbat, the Jewish day of rest. With us in our studio today, we have two distinguished guests, Rabbi Moshe Nu and Sarah Raskin. Rabbi Nu, thank you for joining us. It says in the Torah that Shabbat is a day of rest. Why is it so important, and what is it all about?
The word Shabbat means to stop or to cease activity. The Torah commands us, the Bible commands us in the Torah, that inasmuch that God created the world in 6 days, and the seventh day he ceased creating, so God commands us also to cease from engaging in work on the seventh day.
So what is considered work? Is driving a car on Shabbat, turning on the light, is that work?
The definition of work on Shabbat is any activity where man manipulates deliberately or controls nature, God's natural world, that we refrain from doing on Shabbat.
These are things we don't do. There are a lot of things that we do on Shabbat, such as lighting Shabbat candles. Mrs. Raskin, can you tell us why is that it's so important that women should light the Shabbat candles?
You know, every mitzvah that we do brings light into the world, but one of the only mitzvah that we do that actually brings a physical light in the world is lighting the Shabbat candle. So every time when we usher in the Shabbat with the lighting the Shabbat candle, we're actually bringing in not only a spiritual light, but a physical light.
Our next story follows the Rosler family as they prepare for the Shabbat feast. Let's have a look.
Hello, Lustigman family. This is the Junior Rosner family calling. We're just calling to invite you to Shabbat dinner at our house this week.
Every day of the week, it's just what we would say in Hebrew, tachlis. It's very just like every day, like we need to eat, so I make dinner. And yeah, I have fun with it, but like it's really about getting food on the table. But for Shabbat, for me, it's more like an art form.
You have to pick out the soft ones, boo-boo.
I also pick foods according to like the parsha of the week, the different portion that we read. I just love it. My parents have really good friends who always did everything together. I think it's very important to build a relationship to do everything together. He's busy and I'm busy and we do our own things, but even just small mundane activities like going to the grocery store together in preparation for Shabbat brings us closer physically, spiritually.
Before Shabbat, when he would go out and buy things, he would sing that song. Everything that he would pick up, he'd say, Lekovid Shabbos, Lekovid Shabbos. We spend a lot of
of money on our food. And it's really for a very special purpose, and that's Shabbat. It's actually so special that it warrants spending this much money on. So that's when God says, Banai levu alai. Borrow from me. Take some of the money that I've given you, that I've bestowed upon you, and spend it. Spend a lot of it. Spend it for the sake and for the honor of Shabbat. And I guarantee you and I promise you that I will pay you back. And not only will I pay you back, but I will mosif, I will add to what you put in. So even though we spent quite a bit of money, I'm not too worried, because I know that in some sense God's going to pay us back. So that's a nice feeling.
The first thing you do when you should get up Wednesday and say, I have to prepare for Shabbat. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is preparation. Friday, Shabbat is the middle. And then, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is kind of coming down off it. And that way Shabbat is kind of what gives life and what we say chiyut, like life and energy. That's how you draw on Shabbat's life and energy for the rest of your week. In terms of preparation for Shabbat, there's a difference between men and women's roles. Jonathan sets up the lights in the house. He sets up my candles. He sets up the blech. We have like a hot plate that we put over the stove because we can't cook on Shabbat. And I think that sometimes a lot of the mitzvot have that aspect of I do one thing and he does another thing, and together it makes the mitzvah happen.
Love you. Bye. Bread is considered, at least amongst in Jewish liturgy and in Jewish law, the mainstay of the meal.
Great thing to see a lot of Jews here coming to get challahs.
I used to bake challah.
The best challah in town. And everyone's coming from all over town to here to get them hot out of the oven. They're buying 8, 9, 10 challahs at a time, so they're all pushing and shoving. The best challah in town.
Just drive me into the store. A plastic bag for the challah.
People should be working and baking up to the last second to mimic how God is. So it's supposed to be crazy on Friday, all the time.
It is crazy all the time.
Well, you see. Shabbat is this very special day where we recognize that God is the creator of the universe, and we remember this, and we sort of revel in that fact, and we gain pleasure from this fact, and we enjoy this fact. We therefore have a tremendous commandment upon ourselves to properly prepare ourselves for this day. And in a certain sense, one sees the satisfaction retroactively. After it's all done, and you're sitting at the Friday night table, and you look around you, and there are beautiful candles burning, and there's this fantastic table with the best china out, and beautiful, delicious food sitting on the table, and there's wine pouring like there's no tomorrow, and all your friends and family are there with you, and you're singing songs, and you're speaking of beautiful, lofty concepts and ideas about how one should live their life. I mean, is there anything better than that? V'karata la Shabbat oneg. The last part there means, V'karata la Shabbat oneg, and you shall call Shabbat, you shall name it a delight. And some people interpret that to mean that is a reference to, how do you delight in something? You prepare yourself for it. How do you delight in your son's graduation from university? Or how do you delight in seeing your child perform a play in school? You prepare for it.
Taking a bath for Shabbat.
That's how you pleasure and enjoy yourself in that event.
Something about lighting Shabbat candles that everything changes at that one moment. You're rushing and everything's crazy. Wednesday, you're thinking about it. Thursday, you're preparing. Friday's total madness. No matter if your day, if Shabbat starts at 9 or if Shabbat starts at 4. There's never enough time. And you have this moment that you go and you strike the match, and you light the candles, and you say the blessing, and it's like everything falls away. There's no words to describe, just that moment of calm, that moment of it's all over, the week is over, everything drops away. I'm at peace, I can be with my family, I can connect to God.
There's a lot of concept going on Shabbat with the Shabbat queen, the queen of Shabbat, Shabbat HaMalkah. What's the significance of that?
Actually, Shabbat is very much a day that embodies the feminine. As you mentioned, Shabbat's not called the Shabbat king, but rather the Shabbat queen. And as we just heard, it's the Jewish woman that ushers Shabbat into the world. Shabbat is a time to be. On a deeper level, this means even during the week we experience what God does. On Shabbat, we come to know who God is. Spiritually, the difference between men and women in general is that the woman has a much more innate sense of being. She defines herself much more by who she is rather than what she does or owns or how she performs. So Shabbat is very much a day to be in tune with the inner self. And therefore that's a very feminine talent and a very feminine quality. And accordingly then, Shabbat is called the Shabbat queen.
What is the significance of the Kiddush on wine specifically?
All important occasions, marriage, Shabbat, the circumcision, are all done usually over a cup of wine. Wine is symbolic of joy, bringing gladness, King David says in the book of Psalms, to both God and man.
And then just like a first and then start with a cheap one. It's just a place for people to meet in an informal way. In addition to that, though, I mean, there's all the traditional things that synagogues have. We have a service every day in the morning. We have regular Torah classes that happen, different topics. Some of them daily, some of them weekly. We have, and Shabbat is our biggest thing. Kids come and really pray for an hour and a half to 2 hours on a Friday night. Just straight prayer. Shabbat is not just a coffee break. It's mamish, like it's all over. Everything you've done is over. In a way, spiritually, it parallels the next world. It's as if your whole life is over. Everything you've done, now it's just time to enjoy what you've got and just be with people. And to go deeper into really who am I? And really what matters to me? And that's like entering into the realm of the holy. And then Saturday night, when it's time for Havdalah, when Shabbat is drawing to a close, for a lot of Jews, it's a very engrossing service because it really involves you on so many different levels. You have a torch that you light. You have spices that you smell, wine that you drink, songs that you sing. It's a very, very involving thing. Saturday night, the Havdalah candle has to be 2 intertwined candles. The flame is supposed to be made out of at least 2 wicks, right? What was 2 on Friday night, let's say, becomes 1 through the Shabbat experience, and you have now this strong sense of unity with family, unity with God, unity with your own self, to give you the strength to go into the week and do what needs to be done in a way that will be kind of Shabbat informed, and in a way that you won't fall into the trap of never-ending work. And that awareness is what allows you to be able to make separations, which is what Havdalah is. It's a time of separating, saying, okay, Shabbat is over, it's separate, now we're going into another space. So the sages say, Nichnas yain yatsa sod, you drink wine, and all the secrets come out. It's just, you get drunk enough and it'll come out. But more than that, wine is something, what they say, reveals the secret of the world. Wine is one thing that gets better with time. So wine is teaching you that no, it might look like on the outside it's getting bad, but God is running the world and things are getting better in a hidden way that we can't see. Things with time are really getting better, and every Jewish ritual is there to remind us of that. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a great Hasidic Rebbe, he used to go and as before they had highlighters, but he used to underline all the verses in the Psalms that were about happiness, and all the verses in Psalms were about conquering fear, and all the verses in Psalms were about calling out to God in time of distress. And when he was feeling a certain way, he'd say all of them, and it would help him to Because the moment you take your feeling that you're having and then you put it into a relationship with God, in a cathartic way, in an expressive way, you take the verses that are the deepest expression of that feeling and you say them with everything you've got. It's a tremendous spiritual tool.
בין קודש לכל, בין אור לכל הישך, בין ישראל אלו העמים, בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה. ברוך אתה אדוני המבדיל בין קודש לכל. Kind of like sort of thin and tall.
Haciendo su debut como profesional, today making his professional debut, de Brooklyn, New York, Dimitri Salita. Unanimous decision. Dimitri, the Star of David, Salita.
I was born in 1982 in Odessa, Ukraine. I came to the United States in December of 1991 with my family to Brooklyn, New York, and that's where I live today. I never did boxing to protect myself or to be a good street fighter or anything like that. The only reason why I boxed was, to compete and to be the best at a national, at a world level, to be a world champion. When I came to Brooklyn, I went to PS 197. My parents didn't have money, and I wore the cheapest clothes there was. The gym was very important to me. It was just, it was a big, big part of my life, and I wanted to compete in the tournaments, and I wanted to win, and I wanted to, to be great at what I did. I was very serious about boxing. At that time, my mother was sick, and boxing and kind of kept me balanced emotionally. I mean, the only place that I could really kind of relax and get away from it all was in a boxing gym. I think I met him when I was about 14 and a half, 15 years of age, and he kind of welcomed me to the synagogue. First of all, I want to say that Rabbi Lieber is a very nice, warm man, and he has a red beard, and that red beard signifies that he's a golden person. Since his beard is golden, he's a golden person. He's the one that's responsible for me becoming more religious in the way that I did. He kind of advised me on the forward steps that I should take in my own, spiritual journey. Observing Shabbos, eating kosher, praying a little more at a time, putting on tefillin, things like that. No, see, the thing about Chabad is they let you make all the choices. They let you go at their own level. That's the great thing about them. They're strict within what they do. To themselves, they're very strict, but they work with the person, they work with the individual. But when I told them that I was a boxer, they said, "A Jewish boy boxing? It's not a Jewish thing to do. What, are you crazy?" Well, he didn't say, "What, are you crazy?" But, he said that boxing is not a Jewish job. The truth is that there were many, many Jewish fighters. Back in the 1920s and 1930s, it was actually the most dominant ethnic group in boxing. But, today many people forget. I mean, boxing was so big in the Jewish community that when Benny Leonard and big fighters like that fought, people would storm out of the ghettos, and, everybody would try to speak to find out the news what happened. I'm signed with Top Rank, and the president of Top Rank is Mr. Bob Barum, and he's really, considered and is the best promoter in the world. He promoted many world champions. Now he promotes, I'm sure many people know of Oscar De La Hoya.
Very religious young man. Doesn't fight on Saturday till after sundown.
There's a clause in the contract that says that I won't fight on Jewish holidays and on Shabbos. So they still manage to put me on big cards, even though, sometimes they have a problem with scheduling. So that's been actually working out great. They actually put it in the contract before I even mentioned it. I mean, they knew, Bob Arum knew about my observances, but it was in the contract, without me mentioning it, and it hasn't been a problem. And as a pro, I'm 8-0 with 6 knockouts. I actually feel that Shabbat works to my advantage because I know that it's a day. If I'm fighting on Saturday night, it's a day where I can completely kind of separate myself from all that, stress and tension, and just kind of relax and get into myself. Boxing is a very lonely sport, and it's a known fact. And it's a very spiritual sport in the sense that when you're in the locker room 5 minutes before you go, you're getting ready to fight another guy, when you're in the ring, there's nobody there. Your trainers, they prepared you, but no one can help you. You can't take a break and you can't help to take a time out. So the only, all you can do is get yourself prepared and ask God for help. So, in a way, I think that helped me because it makes you get a little spiritual. I mean, kind of makes you face your fears in a way. Before the fight, I say my prayers, and then, I ask that all be well, and then I go there and I do my job, Not that I'm professional, it's my job, so I kind of learn to control those emotions. I came to religion being a boxer, and that's what I continue doing. Religion was not created for you not to be able to do whatever it is that you do. Religion is to do what it is that you do, but to do it in a proper way, and to understand, who oversees it all. Just kind of puts things in perspective. God has helped me during my fights. I mean, thank God I haven't been hurt, and I haven't really hurt anyone else. And because I'm a boxer, and Jews haven't been good boxers for a long time, that just attracts attention to itself. Well, 5 years from now, I see myself being a world champion and fighting the best guys out there that are in my weight class, and just, proving that I'm the best boxer in the world. Listen, I'm not doing this to just tell my grandkids that, hey, your granddad or your dad was a boxer, was a professional boxer, and I did a few interviews. I'm doing this to be a great boxer. I'm doing this to be in a Hall of Fame, and I'm very, very serious about it. I mean, my whole, this is what I do. This is me, and when I leave it, 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, when I walk into a room and when I walk down the street, when people just say, oh man, Dimitri Salita, what a fighter he was.
His professional debut, Dimitri, the Star of David, Salita.
Thank you for joining us with this week's episode of Jewish Sparks. Please tune in next week when Jewish Sparks will look at what Judaism really means when it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. For now, I'm Rabbi Pinny Ganevish. Please tune in next week. God bless you and have a great week. Shalom.